This is so rad!
And so it was, he brought forth Genesis.
That's much better. Here you have the Sega Genesis Mini. It is a perfect miniature little replica of that console you remember from the 90s. I have big-ish kind of hands, and you can kind of tell this is so tiny, it's adorable. Up front, it's got two USB ports where the controllers plug in. It's got that weird volume slider that no one ever used for the headphones. It doesn't even work here because it's just for show. Also the reset and on-off button. It's even got a working cartridge slot, but who the hell's gonna use that because it's not real? You could just put your little treasures in there. Maybe. I'm sorry, that made me laugh. And remember on the back it had those weird vents and slots and screws and all that stuff? It's still here and it's still great. Around back you've got an HDMI out and USB for power, and that's about it. They took every attention to detail. It looks really great, and here you have it. You get two of these classic replica Sega Genesis controllers. I don't remember them being so light, but they're light. They're USB to plug into the console. They're about 6 feet long, and that's all you need to worry about. They feel great, they look great, and most importantly, they work. Speaking of working, let's see how the Sega Genesis Mini works in my fake-ass basement. Hey, welcome to my basement. Come have a seat, I'll show you around the Sega Genesis Mini. So you got your menu system here. It's very reminiscent of what the NES and SNES Classic did. And that's kind of the idea, right? Those were really good. So Sega is following suit with this one. The settings are pretty self-explanatory. The cool things you're gonna wanna know about are the fact that you can stretch the gameplay like that, or bring it back to the 4x3 retro style you remember. And if you really wanna suffer, you could put on the CRT filter that makes it look like you're playing it through a 13-inch monitor. But I'm gonna play it the way the good Lord intended in 4x3. Let's go back and start up some games. The cool thing about the Sega Genesis Mini is that it does a really good job at emulation. This Japanese developer M2 handled that part of the console, and it's great for games that were awesome, and it's great for games that were bad. Like this one, Altered Beasts. It's hot garbage, but the Sega Genesis Mini retains that garbage. Check out this game. I cannot believe this is what I was playing in the early 90s. This controller, you will instantly remember it from your childhood or whenever you played the original Genesis. They did a great job at keeping its traditional shape and feel. I'm now a wolf. That's it. Just so you know, when you pause any game, you have the option to do a save state, which is really great because a lot of Genesis games never even offered that. And you can back out to the main menu or load up something you've already had saved. I am going to return to the main menu. Let's see what else this console has. 42 games in total, plus there's also a few games that never were even released on the Genesis, which is pretty great. I want to play a little game called Sonic Spinball. Not a lot of people are into this, but this game, because I love pinball so much, this game really spoke to me back in the 90s. The frame rate was not the best, but it just did a really good job at like turning the Sonic universe into a pinball game. And I'm now gonna relive that feeling I got in the 90s right now. Okay, so there was a lot of objective-based stuff, just like a normal pinball machine, except you had to deal with, you know, all the weird sort of Sonic stuff. I mean, even in the 90s, I knew this game wasn't running that well. But what's great is it runs exactly the way I remember it, at 11 frames per second. Some people aren't into retro gaming, but if you have any tangible memory of what Genesis was like playing in the 90s, you are going to fall right back into that time period with this thing. I have to say, there's been some pretty messy Sega Genesis emulation that's hit the market in the last year or so. This one, they did it right. All right, moving on. I'd like to play one of my favorite games in this collection, and this collection is solid. That's a big worry for people. Have no fear, this is a solid library of Genesis games. Maybe a couple misses here and there, but for the price of $80, the value, it's there for sure. Vectorman. Wow, it was 1995. I'm 13 years old in 1995. So I'm a young teenager, and I have vivid memories of playing Vectorman. I never owned it. I rented it 11 times in a row. So this is what Earth looks like in 2049 in the land of Vectorman. Kind of maybe more accurate than we'd like to admit. All right, so now this game, I really remember it feeling super responsive and kind of the quickest action game that this console offered. And man, it controls just as good as I remember. And I'm not gonna lie, especially now with like the with retro gaming and that kind of style coming back, this does have a feeling of sort of freshness to it, which is really great. You know, emulation is a touchy subject when it comes to retro gaming, and I feel like even the most scrutinizing of gamers are gonna really dig how good of a job this Genesis Mini does. Oh, look how badass! He's just chilling there next to the wall, being like, "You gonna play, or we're just gonna sit here and whistle for the next millennia?" Look at him, he's so cool. So obviously you're gonna have your classics represented here. Sonic 1 and 2, Toe Jam and Earl, who could forget Toe Jam and Earl? And then Echo the Dolphin. You know, that game that was like marketed really well, and you just started playing it and you're like, I don't really understand how to play this game, but it's cute and adorable and it seems fun, so it's kind of what you did with it. I feel like we have to show at least a little bit of Sonic the Hedgehog 2. So, Sonic playing just like you remember, you know, just like you remember being real bad at it. That was always my case with Sonic. I'm not going to say that Sonic, you know, I enjoyed Sonic when it first came out. Look, is it maybe overrated in the long run? Perhaps. Is the weirdness of like incredible speed and platforming together kind of a strange combination? Yeah, some would say that. But it's fun. And who doesn't like going upside down, right? Up. So there you have it, the Sega Genesis Mini. There's not a lot to complain about. 42 games inside, $80. It's a great value and a perfect love letter for players of that generation, including myself. So thanks for watching, and if you don't mind, I'm gonna keep playing this thing in my fake basement.